Picture this. You're 22 years old. You're standing right at the edge of the rest of your life. And honestly, you're completely overwhelmed by the crushing pressure of making massive, life-altering choices. It feels like every single direction you look is just heavy with consequence.
People constantly ask you, so which career path are you going to commit to for the next 40 years?
And then it's, where should you live? Are you going to move to the big city or stay close to home?
Who should you marry? How much money should you be saving? What if you just totally mess up and one wrong move ruins the whole shebang? It is literally paralyzing, right?
Well, let's just take a collective deep breath, because the core thesis of today's explainer is incredibly relieving. You actually don't need certainty to make a good decision. We're going to shift our focus entirely away from trying to perfectly predict an impossible future. And instead, we're going to build a brilliant, bulletproof process for dealing with the unknown.
The problem with hindsight.
So, according to Nobel Prize-winning psychologist Daniel Kahneman, we all suffer from this massive flaw in human logic. It's called hindsight and outcome bias. Basically, we constantly judge the quality of a decision by whether things turned out good or bad, and we completely ignore whether the actual decision-making process was sound in the first place. Think about it. Let's say a doctor orders a totally routine, low-risk surgery, but some unpredictable, tragic accident happens. People will look back and say the doctor made a terrible decision. On the flip side, some reckless entrepreneur might take a crazy gamble, get totally lucky, and boom, we praise them as a genius. The absolutely crucial takeaway here: successful outcomes do not prove a decision was good, and bad outcomes do not prove a decision was bad. You've got to separate the decision from the outcome.
Section 2. Thinking in bets.
To really get a handle on this, we need to look at Annie Duke. In her fantastic book, Thinking in Bets, the former professional poker player argues something super important that we really need to unpack. Duke says we absolutely must stop obsessing over absolute certainties and start thinking in probabilities instead. She argues that, when you get down to it, every decision is essentially a bet on an unknown future. It all starts with your belief. That belief informs your bet, which is your decision, and then that branches out into a whole set of possible outcomes. You are basically placing a bet against alternative futures. And when you place that bet, it doesn't just lock you into one inevitable result. It branches out, right, into future A, future B, future C. It's like a giant puzzle. This is called scenario planning. So, when choosing a career, don't ask what is the single correct answer. Instead, map out a broad range of possibilities. This prepares you to pivot nimbly, instead of being completely blindsided when reality inevitably throws a curveball.
Section 3. Fast and slow thinking.
Now, let's bring back Daniel Kahneman. In his incredibly famous landmark book, Thinking Fast and Slow, Kahneman dives deep into how our brains rely on heuristics. These are basically mental shortcuts that, unfortunately, often lead to some pretty severe and systematic errors. He identified several really common cognitive pitfalls. We've got anchoring, where we rely way too heavily on the very first piece of information we hear. Availability, where we judge risk just based on how easily we can remember a similar example. Overconfidence, where we convince ourselves we're total experts based on super flimsy evidence. And loss aversion, where, losing a $20 bill stings way more than finding one feels good. Now hear me out. These biases are completely normal human tendencies. They definitely don't mean you're entirely irrational. They just mean you have to be super deliberate if you want to outsmart your own brain.
Section 4. The effective executive.
So how do we actually take action despite all those cognitive traps? Well, we turn to Peter Drucker. He is the author of The Effective Executive, which is just an absolute staple when it comes to management, leadership, and deliberate decision-making. Drucker talks a lot about concentration, and he defines that as having the courage to impose your own decision on what really matters. See, highly effective people don't just fire off 100 rapid-fire decisions all day long. They focus on a few fundamental ones. They're constantly weighing the risk of taking action against the risk of inaction. Because sometimes, the risk of doing absolutely nothing is far, far worse than making a choice with an unpredictable outcome.
Section 5. The decision framework.
Okay, so if we take the best ideas from Duke, Kahneman, and Drucker, we get this highly actionable 6-step framework. Step 1, define the decision clearly. Step 2, separate actual facts from the assumptions your biases are making up. Step 3, identify the uncertainty. Like, what do you simply not know? Step 4, map out those multiple possible futures we talked about. Step 5, ask yourself what specific new information would actually force you to change your mind. And finally, step 6, make the decision, fully accepting that uncertainty is always going to remain. You're playing the odds here, not looking for a magic guarantee. Section 6, applying the framework. Let's put this into practice. Imagine you have two opportunities in front of you. Door A is a stable corporate job, and door B is a super risky startup. Don't look for the quote-unquote right answer. Use the framework. Evaluate the upside of both. Look at the downside of both. Ask yourself, which one actually gives you the greatest opportunity for learning? Which choice has more reversibility? Like, if you hate the startup, can you easily just go back to corporate later? By mapping out the financial impacts and the long-term scenarios, you aren't trying to magically predict the future. You are actively managing your risk. And just a quick aside, remember that this is a demonstrative framework for evaluating risk, so please don't take this as personalized financial, legal, or career advice. Section 7, the best chance of getting a good outcome. Here is the ultimate, incredibly empowering realization. Good decisions do not guarantee good outcomes. They just don't. The universe is entirely too chaotic for that. But a strong, deliberate, unbiased decision-making process gives you the absolute best chance of getting a good outcome. It frees you from that awful, paralyzing fear of getting it wrong, because you know for a fact that your process was sound based on the exact information you had at the time. So what does this all mean for you? I want to leave you with this final thought. Think about one major decision you're currently struggling with right now. Don't ask yourself what the right answer is. Instead, ask yourself, what uncertainty are you actually trying to solve? Map out your futures, place your absolute best bet, and embrace the unknown. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and hey, happy decision making!